for Verdant, but on the side of Riddle, I feel it's more about finding isolated 3v2s, maybe some 2v1s in those little team fights that you can then get into bigger advantages. We are now jumping onto the red for our final game of the day. Riddle trying to keep their unbeaten streak alive. Verdant looking to potentially leapfrog Ruddy in the standings if they can get an upset win today.
Yeah, but that's an uphill battle for them, just like it was for Ruddy in the previous game. They aren't really favored. I mean, I'm sorry, Middlecourt, except by you, they aren't realistically favored in terms of team versus team matchup. Their draft's decent here, right? Like, they do have playable win conditions, but they are yet to really win one of these games on their own terms. They've won it through God's graces himself, and we know the name of our Lord. It is Taxer, right? The only thing certain other than death is that he will steal your objective and your win. And that is legitimately the question. How do you deal with that potential eventuality? Because otherwise, we might just be looking at a clean lead into a close for Riddle, like they have done so many times before.
And there have been a couple of curveballs in terms of the champion picks here. We've sort of discussed the Camille at length, but I also want to look at this Lee Sin here for Johan. We've seen a Lee Sin in the NLC already, and it didn't go great. Why? What's the thinking behind this pick, aside from kicking Taxer out of the Baron pit?
I mean, it's interesting. I think you want to just match Taxer towards this top side rather than play a farming jungler, which would not really want to skip his camps to match so much. And in having this skirmish power early, you can prevent Nyla being able to get ahead in the opening phases of the game. Right now, he has to think about the potential for a level 2 Lee Sin being topside, which limits his ability to trade against the Cassante. That's the immediate thing I think you get. You also know you have scaling locked down with the Zoe Lulu. You don't need it from the Graves. You don't need it from your top lane. You don't need it from your mid lane. You don't need it from your jungle. If you don't need it there, then why not just get something that guarantees to bridge you into later phases and gives you more stuff in the opening? Good skirmishing allows you to get to your late game phase. You don't need additional insurance. Just trust in Reptile to do what he's done so many times before. That's the thinking behind the Lee Sin. Just disrupt Taxer, disrupt the enemy's game plan, and then trust that your team will carry you in later phases. He has Taxer's number right now. He's in this guy's jungle. He's looking for him. He's hunting him down.
That's exactly what we were saying that he needed to be doing. Can now rotate towards the mid lane. No, he's just going to continue around this top side. Raptors are up if he wants to take those away, but I imagine that this is a sign of things to come, and it wouldn't surprise me if Johan spent a little bit more time in Tax's jungle than he ends up spending in his own.
Yes, I mean, at least trying to match him and make sure he doesn't have easy paths to do something topside. Just by forcing Taxer out of topside jungle, or at least giving his own team the knowledge of Taxer's reset on topside, Camille can't really do whatever it is that she wants to the Cassante right now and leverage her own lead 1v1. So you have a lot of impact even if you don't hunt down Taxer just by giving that information to your team.
I like that from Johan. There's a little bit of an engage from Cly in the bottom lane. Rakan, another one of these picks that we don't tend to see too much, as a lot of these engage and slightly tankier supports have fallen away in favour of the Enchanter and poke meta that has emerged in the bottom lane. But it's nice to see Cly is willing to go back to some of the classics.
Yeah, I mean, Cly has always been one of these map-based, pick-based players, right? Think about the Nautilus, think about the Leona, we think about even full-on engaged champs like the Alistar, right? These are the things Cly excels on, and he came from that kind of like Treats Rux era of supports that understood at least the basic things you should be doing from resets and attempted to do those consistently. So a champion like Rakan rather than an Enchanter is the minimum we would expect from a player like him. He hasn't changed that much since the old days, and it is stuff that, especially in the ERLs, does give your team a net benefit.
Well, I suppose because we're not LCK, right? The bottom lane play isn't going to be absolutely immaculate, and so the idea that you can actually trade some of the power in that 2v2, or maybe even empowering your AD carry for that more reliable, that more certain engage in these team fights is very valuable. You look at Nile, you look at Taxa, they've got some single target engage, but there's nothing quite like a grand entrance, charming a whole bunch of people and knocking them into the sky. Fire Rain here, fighting up with E-Roll, using that stolen Azir ultimate to just get a bit of a chunk onto this mage in the mid lane.
Yeah, first Azir ultimate from the game, and it's not even from the Azir. The Azir doesn't even have it yet, just gets it now. Just now hits level 6. Fire Rain really leveraged that minion advantage that he got to get the level 6 first and immediately go all in. Respect it, it makes it very difficult for the Azir to move up and crash this wave, and eventually he will have to move up and crash it.
So, something that I have noticed, just having a little look at the item builds and the keystones picked up, Kevo actually opting towards Hail of Blades and going towards the Serrated Dirk, which will imply this is a bit more of a poke focus Varus as opposed to the on-hit that we saw from Woolite in the previous game.
Yeah, I mean, that does somewhat diminish the Baron threat that he has, but...
Nile gets pulled under the tower. That was a really smart dodge on the resonating strike. Means that the Verdant top lane is going to be able to get away. Riddle might opt in for a 2v2, make that a 3v3 as Fire Rain is moving over, and Taxa is taking incredibly low, flashes away just in time. The second Azir ultimate of the game is enough to keep the Verdant jungler alive.
I mean, Nile can get out there. If that wave has a cannon in it, he may not even lose that much, but it's still going to hurt. He's actually going to risk staying here to absorb the wave. When they see him on the tower, it's interesting if Lee decides to cancel or not. Bot lane in the 2v2, but that's not going to give any kills, and it's just going to be a reset for Reptile and Kiba. That's why they did it there. If you go aggressive in that moment, you don't care if you lose the trade 2v2, and you do lose a trade 2v2, because you're going to recall anyway. So Cly responds by interrupting the recalls, locks them in lane. Now they have to deal with their low HP, low mana. Biscuits being burned to make sure they can still play the game. Kevo is inches away from losing mana, but look at his inventory. It's fake. He does have 2 biscuits up, so overall, really good state for Verdant spot lane now because of Cly's interruption of the enemy recalls. They could leverage this into a better back and be in a good position to fight on the next rotation.
I mean, with Taxa roaming down and level 5 on bottom lane for quite a while, maybe we are looking at some level 6 timings in a potential dive. There we are. Kevo, access to the chains of corruptions now. Taxa soaking a bit of XP just to get level 6, and now Verdant's bottom lane peeling off with their jungler towards the dragon. Just going to take a reset instead.
Yeah, I mean, he denied Zeri another reset on bot. Cly is ahead a full wave from his AD carry on resetting, which means he could make a play on top lane. And that's what you want. For this Camille to get ahead of the Cassante, shut down the Cassante, get the Camille your big win condition in the game online and enable her to be able to play sides here. They're going to do this into a Herald. You have to assume that Herald will be dropped topside. Varus is very far ahead of the Zeri. This could be a really good scenario for Verdant.
Rain's got the stolen Sejuani ultimate, and he's able to lock down Cly with it, and they've stolen the Herald as well! Verdant set up the play, but it goes disastrously wrong. 2 kills for Riddle and the Herald.
Could. The operative word there was could. It did not, in fact, go well. Instead, Johan, his pick on the Lee Sin pays dividends there. This is picked to give them good skirmishing potential, and whereas all it did was like the job that it had to do in this fight, that's more than enough. If he was here on something like Graves, it's nowhere near as impactful. This opening, the Sedge ult coming out from the Silas there, was absolutely huge. Insta-deleted. The Rakan being there did not matter whatsoever. Just wiped out from the game. Ultimately, they just delivered more gold into Riddle's pockets, and now Riddle are firmly in control of this game. A lot of very nice movements from the bot lane in the 2v2 into the map vanish because Riddle just play these fights better when it matters, and that bodes well for the rest of the game because, as we've been saying, they have to play those fights good on the neutrals to risk it not getting stolen. To not risk it getting stolen. Sorry.
I tell you what, it vindicates the Lee Sin pick as well, right? Not
Yes,
only has
exactly.
Johan been doing a pretty decent job of tracking where Taxa is and shutting him down, if Riddle are forcing these early fights and getting into these skirmishes, the Lee Sin is just going to provide more value than the Sejuani at this point of the game.
Yeah, for sure the Lee can provide more. It's just the Lee will provide so little later on, except for the utility of his kick, which, as you've expressed before, could just be used to give Sejuani so much distance that she can't steal the Baron. I'm envisioning a flash kick ward hop or ward hop flash kick back in towards the Baron pit, stuff like this. But this early control, preventing them getting the Nyla win condition down, not getting the Herald to drop for the Nyla win condition, just guarantees you're in that better position later fights if you trust Reptile. Reptile not getting the free lane he maybe expected bot here. Ooh, Banderas.
Ooh, beautiful dodge away from the knock-up. Fighting up with Banderas in the top lane as the second charge of Q and gets a solo kill. That is exactly what the Verdant fans would have been asking for.
That is not what you want to see on your screen right now. If you are a Riddle fan, Verdant have gotten the opening salvo. Middle cot, I can taste his satisfaction from here, but Reptile, you know, he doesn't want that prediction to turn out to be correct. They're going in, they're basically 2v3ing them. Varus, Rakan, Sedge, not really able to do much on the bot side there. So we just get a replay of this.
That dodge, I think Nilla just completely turns the entire fight, and Verdant really needed a bit of an outlet because this game, not getting away from them, but Riddle definitely stronger as it stands. Ultimate goes a little bit wide as Johan is going to be forced to get away just in time. Safeguard, wild growth, everything popped on the Lee Sin to keep him alive.
Probably overkill and you lose those cooldowns, but Riddle are in a position where they can choose if they want the next fight or not. Bot lane is bouncing back into them, top is bouncing back into them, mid is bouncing back into them, and no neutrals on the map. You can afford to burn everything to make sure that Johan's error there doesn't become a calamity for the rest of your team. Banderas, meanwhile, he's just absolutely chilling, taking plate upon plate upon plate. Nyla's back here, he needs to get away. Nyla now, thinking, can I get this? Doesn't really have the ultimate to lock him into the fight, so he'll just get some chip damage and go. But my god, that chip damage. Nyla could really be a threat here.
That's not a chip. Like, I don't know what's bigger than a chip, a chunk? The Divine Sunderer has...
That was a potato of damage.
I dislike the direction that you've gone with that.
It's a potato of damage.
We are not calling it a potato of damage, veteran.
He did a potato of damage. What's wrong with that?
Right, anyway, long story short...
You can get many chips from a potato. That was many chips worth of damage. It's a potato. I'm right.
But you're right, but at what cost, veteran? At what cost? Long story short, Divine Sunderer, very, very good on Camille. And I like this from Verdant, actually. They're hunting for fire, and Cly blowing the trap a little bit too early. And not able to catch out the Silas.
I mean, both Kiba and Firerain, they're moving into the jungle to defend Johan. Taxa a bit fed up of Johan having his number with these lanes, leveraging the advantages lanes have to try to make something happen there. But now Nyla might be caught out.
He's going to be able to hookshot wall dive away, but Johan with the ward up over the wall into the queue will be able to find him, lock him out, kick him back. There should be an elementary kill. Actually, a very smart flashback from Nilla, and there are no more members of Riddle who are chasing him down. Turns it around onto Johan, who cannot get away. A solo kill from Nilla.
I think another potato worth of damage there from Nyla to secure the kill. Firerain, though, he's going to try to cook this potato here, make it nice and crispy, but he's going to get executed by the tower. No one is going to be fed today.
That is big. Do you know what's worse than a one-kill Camille, veteran?
A rotten potato.
2 kills on the Camille. This was very, very well played from Nilla, respecting, understanding the limits of his damage and getting the turnaround beautifully.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is the danger zone. You picked the Lee Sin because you knew he's not going to be that good later, but maybe he gets skirmishes early. The Lee can't even take it to the Camille.
Reptile cleanses instantly, but he's going to get charmed. No, Cly misses him, actually. Reptile is 2v3ing in the bot lane, weak side king.
I mean, Verdant, this is a very strong showing from them. Yes, they're 3k gold behind, but they are getting their gold on their win conditions. Meanwhile, the kills on Riddle are on the Cassante. They're on the Lulu. They're not on the Silas. They're not on the Zeri, and the Zeri is what you're relying on later on. And the accelerating pick from Verdant, this Nyla Camille, it's on the board. It is the sum accumulation of their goal difference from if they've done nothing. They actually are in a good position, just can they get this Herald? They failed the last time. They don't have the Scuttler this time. They have priority from the Camille. They don't have the Varus coming in, but the Varus was inconsequential before. If they can grab this Herald and do something with it, right? Maybe they can open up the game in their favor in a state where the Camille is a threat on the side. No one can take her. Where Camille can lean in towards the jungle and do something. Lee is starting it up, but you know, Verdant, they can sniff when you start an objective. Like, I was in Diamond Promos yesterday, and Taxa was just came in from Grandmaster and just insta-stole the whole thing, right? Like, they know, and they're looking to contest.
Not going to be able to get there in time. And I think that this Rift Herald is really key for Riddle, because whilst members of Verdant may be in good spots, the map fundamentally isn't. They've lost 2 towers. They haven't been able to get anything off of these heralds. They've gone in favor of Riddle. And now Kevo is being caught out on the side lane by Fire Rain. He's got so much mobility on the Silas, but not quite enough to take out the Verdant AD carry. Drake is on the board. Riddle are moving towards it. And this is what we were talking about, Verdant. They've got good pieces, but if they can't get them all to work together, then the overall gold lead that Riddle have probably going to be enough.
I mean, Riddle's record against Verdant when it comes to neutrals is already leagues above the rest. But, you know, their kills record against Verdant are doing a bit better on that than they have done against anyone else so far. It's looking good for them to try to show that they are a real top-tier team, especially with Ruddy falling so far behind both Nord and Riddle. Maybe Verdant could at least make this try to look close, if not potentially win, because an even Verdant that's able to steal your Baron 22 minutes into the game, I mean, you have to think, then you're starting to sweat as Riddle.
Oh, absolutely, and of course if Nile gets a Baron, then very, very horrible things will happen to the towers and subsequently the base of Riddle, because I don't look at anyone of their champions and think this is someone that can contest a Camille once we get 30 minutes in. What an ultimate predict! Beautiful knockup from the Wild Growth, denies the engage from Kiba, and Riddle are going to be able to turn it around. I don't think they're going to be grabbing any kills as Fire Rain misses with the abscond abduct, but that was a great play from Taxa and an excellent response from Kiba.
When divers go to hell, they find Lulu waiting for them with the polymorph, with the wild growth. It's almost impossible to get on top of someone if you haven't actually accounted for her. My god, she's so goddamn cute and she said stuff like that. But you cannot get the Rakan in if the wild growth is there. You cannot execute the rest of your dive if the polymorph is there. And Kiba is always in position around his AD carry to get that stuff off. He's never in position to die before the fight. If he remains this consistent, Reptile will eventually have the items he needs to carry the game, whether the acceleration has worked or not.
And I think this is great positioning from Johan, right? Because even if Fire Rain is able to get out of the potential dive that Verdant was setting up there, tower still probably goes down. It's 19 minutes into the game, and Riddle haven't lost a structure yet. The longer that they can keep these alive, the harder it is for Nile on the Camille to split push, to actually get advantages for Verdant, and Riddle can keep playing their game, stacking up these objectives, and looking for the next fight.
I mean, you're talking about objective stacking. I mean, I think Taxa's about to knock on your door right there. That's what we're all waiting for, right? Riddle, they look in control of the game. They look like it's in their favor, even if they're only edging that way. It looks like Verdant haven't been able to leverage the Camille into a lead in any real sense. None of the towers are down. If there are long lanes, they're long lanes Riddle can ignore in favor of neutrals. Which means...
Absolutely.
Can they turn it around at those neutrals? Right? The eternal question. which so far for Verdant has been a resounding yes.
You have to feel that it's going to be harder and harder as the map state starts to look worse and worse. Nille will be able to pick up that bot lane tower, and that should be enough gold to get him to his second item, that Ravenous Hydra. It's going to be very, very difficult to deal with, but Riddle, it feels like they're already exactly where they want to be. Johan and Firerain hunting for Kevin, and they are going to be able to lock him down and find him and take him out with ease. It's a third kill of the game for Riddle. Just a single pick
20.
as it stands. Looking for a push onto the mid lane tower.
It's 20-30, they have a pick, there's potentially a Baron there, but Taxa is still on the map and they're not. They are peeling off and they are headed in that direction, and that's the comfort zone right there for Verdant. Nyla going straight back bot, looking to try to pressure them maybe so that they don't start the Baron. He's not going to group with his team just yet. Drake will be up soon. That will be the next point of contest. And as you can see here, they just go straight onto Kevo, completely isolated. Clyde tries to join. Errol is nowhere near able to join. And Taxa, I mean, he can't really do anything there when they decide to do dives like this. There are too many dashes on the side of Riddle, too many ways for them to clear distances that aren't available to anyone but Clyde. It's difficult. You can't get caught out like that, especially not against a team that has so many go buttons.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think those go buttons are going to be key for Riddle, because the way that you deal with Nilla at this point is not by trying to fight the Camille, because she probably wins you 1v1. It's engage on the group of people that she's left behind that are trying to defend mid lane, get a pick, and then you can start looking towards objectives like the Baron when Verdant are a little bit more spread out across the map. Next objective spawning, though, is going to be an Ocean Drake. Verdant have actually gained a mid-priority for themselves and could think about moving down, but Banderas there in the river, standing strong, preventing them from making the move.
I mean, Verdant, they're still here. They're still able to contest. Riddle, they could peel back and do the Drake, but they know the risks in doing so. Varus has a lot of poke here. Camille could try to get the flank off. Firerain here just matching Nyla the whole time, trying to make sure Nyla doesn't get on top. But they are starting the Drake. Potential soul point. Taxa is moving in.
Yeah, but he's been thrown against the wall by Banderas. Dragon is on around about 5,000 HP. There goes the lightning crash from Reptiles. He's trying to kite back and deal a load of damage. Taxa being forced away. As Nilla with a big chunk there onto Firerain. Banderas low as well. Taxa around about 30 HP as Riddle are continuing onto that Drake. They've got the pick onto Taxa. They've locked him down with the chains of corruption. We'll take him out as well. That's soul point now for Riddle. They pop the Shiralius as Clyde's looking for a little bit of disengage there. Johan with a fantastic flash kick, but there's no follow-up, there's no response because Nille has caused issues for the backline. He's going to be able to get away just about on the Camille, but it's killed, going in favor of Riddle. That's one traded back though, as Clyde's going to be taken down, as does the Nille. Camille go into the grave. It's Riddle with a 3-for-1 and the Drake.
I mean, Riddle have a 3-for-1, they have a 5k gold lead, but you have to think, that fight went oddly well for Verdant at the end there. Errol full HP, so many 100 HP targets, you have to think that fight goes slightly differently. And honestly, Riddle could easily lose that. Errol's zoned very heavily here by Johan's kick, but honestly, if Johan's out there doing that kick, who's protecting the Zeri? Only the Lulu, and it wasn't enough. Camille gets straight on top, actually deals a lot there. Either Johan steps back and there's nothing that can be done to Riddle's composition, or that whole fight plays again. Azir plays just a little bit better, and that could have turned around massively for Riddle. But still, that was a Riddle win. It wasn't really a close result, and Riddle have a lot less to correct there than Verdant do. This definitely feels like a Riddle-favoured game from here on out. They even figured out how to deal with Taxa. Apparently, if the guy is dead, he can't actually do anything to your objective.
The smite button does appear to become inoperational when you are dead, so that seems like an effective strategy. I think Riddle recognized that the best way to kill Verdant, the best way to take him down, is to force Nille to group with him so that he can't be the split push threat. And when you can hold the threat of an Ocean Soul, when you can hold the threat of a Baron over your opponent, it's very difficult for Nille to justify spending time in side lanes because his team is going to lose so much more while he's not there.
Yeah, I mean, that's true, but equally, if he doesn't push out these side lanes, he can't get the flanks, and if he doesn't get the flanks, then it's very difficult for him to play. Lee Sin or the Cassante have to match him in all of these fights, and he wants to make sure that that happens far away from his own team, because that would expose Reptile to the rest of his team. So getting these flanks matters. It's stuck between a rock and a hard place with these choices. He's got the pressure bot, immediately leans in, tries to find the flank, but Riddle, they're happy to just let Kevo push in midsection and avoid the potential flank.
Unfortunately for Verdant, though, they still haven't been able to take down that mid lane tower, which stands as a bastion protecting the rest of Riddle's jungle. Baron has been on the map for around about 5 minutes, and we're starting to get towards itemization breakpoints where that becomes a very, very real option for Riddle. Reptile has already got his Infinity Edge, with those changes now activating at 40% crit instead of the 60% means you get a bit of an earlier spike on something like the Zeri.
Yes, you do, but right now the big question is, this Nyla, he's going to be able to move from this bot lane into this red side jungle and into midsection. If Kevo shoves this in, are we actually looking at a Baron that Verdant themselves could start? Silas potentially looking for the flank as well. That's the big disruption. They're gonna take out the mid tower. Second tower.
Yeah, but they may pay for it with their lives as Fire Rain with the stolen Chains of Corruption takes out Clyde. And now it's Riddle who are starting to make the moves towards the purple worm. Nile is rotating through their jungle, but this is going to be started immediately. Riddle not hanging around one bit. There is poke potential on the side of Verdant. This is a poke Varus. This is an Azir. Being in the pit can be quite hazardous to your health. So Riddle looking to turn, but Fire Rain not quite finding the engage that he absolutely wanted to. Johan jumping out of the pit as well, and Riddle will back away from the Baron. Verdant, they lose one, but they don't lose any more.
Now, Nyla wasn't able to join in on that fight. The poke Varus and the threat of the Azir plus the Baron was apparently enough to force Riddle out. Verdant can be happy with that. It's a result to get the mid tower. It's a result to deny them the Baron. That's more than they could hope for at this point. Let's see what happens if they rotate it again. Fire Rain was the big player there, right? Nyla was looking to try to get his flank off from bot in towards mid, but Fire Rain knew that he could be ahead of him on rotation and was able to make the pick on towards mid lane off of that mid tower pressure from Verdant. If Fire Rain can keep doing that and keep being ahead of Nyla, then Verdant's composition completely falls apart. But again, Verdant can be happy with what they got from that situation. It was a disadvantageous one for them, but they were able to make it work.
Now they are going to be forced to start up the Drake. If Riddle get this, it would be Sol. Johan going over the wall, but you cannot steal from Taxa. It's going to be the Drake going in favor of Verdant, and they're looking for the fight afterwards as well. Clyde getting a multi-person charm as Nile is not going to be able to take anyone down. The stolen Ricardo from Fire Rain is absolutely massive in the backline. Banderas is going all out as Reptile is firing as many shots as he possibly can. Flashes back away from the engage from Clyde as the Ricardo isn't able to take him out. Johan goes over the wall and gets two with the Gore Drinker. Blood falling from the bodies on Verdant as it is a triple kill for the Lee Sin. Hero will die as well. And Verdant, was the Drake worth it?
Even though Fire Rain died there, it was insanely impactful for him to go in, flash like that, and Zhonya's in the middle of all four of them. That was an immense amount that he ended up doing in that fight, followed up on beautifully by the rest of the team. That looked so good for Verdant for a bit. It looked so good again, but it just was not enough. That feels to me like the story of the entire day. This is just post Fire Rain death here. Clyde re-engages, but that is not the re-engage you want. He has no way to lock up Reptile. He's still next to the Lulu, and that just makes them slim picking. Spread out so thin, the league could easily go one into the next. Banderas chasing as well, and obviously the Zeri hot on their heels the whole time. This Lulu is actually doing so much for Riddle in this game because Verdant seem to keep forgetting that it's there and that you can't just easily get singular re-engages and singular picks. These have to be committed efforts that the Lulu can't counter, but they just aren't. And that ends up being the story of that Drake. Verdant set very far behind, you have to be thinking Riddle are just thinking about how they close this game rather than play in any kind of defensive manner.
Yeah, and you saw towards the sort of the end of that team fight that it was a load of isolated skirmishes. It wasn't all of Verdant's cooldowns being blown in one direction at the same time on the same people. Riddle were able to dart around a little bit. They were able to manipulate the team fight in such a way that no one was getting locked down and they could have these little fights, and it's propelled them to over a 10,000 gold lead. Fire Rain is going to be locked up, going to be charmed, going to be not taken down actually, as he's going to respond with the stolen Glacial Tomb. Taxa forced about to consult away. Johan looking for a kick onto reroll, but it's not the best that he's ever done in his life. Still, the damage that could come out from Reptile is absolutely ridiculous at this point, and Verdant, they all stay alive, but they are forced away from this tower. It's going to fall in favor of Riddle.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just Reptile, it's Reptile and Kiba. Kiba keeping him alive, constantly dissuading Cly from getting the pick, from Errol from getting the pick, Nila from getting the dive. It's very difficult for them to find a way to penetrate this Riddle composition. Riddle have solved the puzzle of Verdant, and have decided the best way to do that is to take fights, is to not just let them get a kind of setup around these neutrals where they can do an elongated contest. Just fight, 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 fight. And in that kind of a chaos, Verdant don't get room to breathe, they don't get into their comfort zone, they don't get to steal, because that Baron, that Drake, that all comes after their deaths.
And for Riddle, it's felt very similar to a lot of their games, right? Taking fights when they know that they can win. Only going for plays when they know that they have the advantage around them. It's 30 minutes and they've taken that inhib tower, but they haven't properly broken the base here on the side of Verdant. And instead of committing to that lane where they've got the easy inhib to take, they're like, no, we're going to do our due diligence. We go down to this bot lane, take down the inner tower, and get a proper shove going. Nile does have level 16 if he wants to back and join this fight, as he has claimed that objective bounty. The Camille is getting stronger and stronger, but the question becomes, is it going to be enough?
I mean, right now, there's basically no way Nilla can get anything bot side. It's a question if they can really defend these towers with him there. So he gets what he can.
It doesn't look likely, as Cly is already dead. Inhib is going to be focused down as well. Reptile is a little bit isolated in the front line, but it's not isolation when you're absolutely killing everybody. Nilla is finally going to be taking this back, but the Nexus towers are already being focused down. There's not too much of a minion wave there for Riddle to play with, so they'd have to wait for the next one if they want to engage in a push, and I think the safer option, back away.
Neither didn't even get the tower on top side, so they couldn't even trade 600 gold onto him for that bottom inhibitor. But this is going to give Riddle a pick.
It was a bit aggressive there. Wild Growth used very, very early into the team fight, and you could see the Lee Sin struggling a little bit more to find access in these tight corridors 30+ minutes into the game, as Nala going over the wall, catching onto Fire Rain with a hookshot wall dive. The rest of Riddle there to back up their mid laner though, as Taxa is taken low. The Drake on the board is sole for Riddle. We've already seen Verdant contest this and take this away. If they contest this, take this away and lose the fight, it will just be game. Johan is able to get a massive kick coming through onto Kevo, and the Varus has been eliminated from the fight before he could do anything. All out goes Banderas, as the shuffle back is worth absolutely nothing from E-Roll. Nila is going to get taken down. That's a double kill for Banderas, as Taxa is forced to run for the hills. I don't think you're going to be stealing any objectives today, mates, as Johan and Banderas will chase him all the way back to his fountain. Teleports into the base. Riddle, in a dominant victory, will take down Verdant and secure themselves 5-0 at the top of the table.
I mean, even just looking at the scores, you have to think this support was actually incredible.